Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. VueScan is one of the easiest and the hardest 35mm film scanning software that I've ever used in my life. Now, before I go any further, what is VueScan? If you're in this channel and watching this particular video, I am having a feeling that you already know what the software is, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is probably one of the best and technically the only second software available that allows you to scan your 35mm film negatives, slide films, and any kind of film or photos available. Interestingly, this particular software is actually not typical film scanning software. It's actually a software for any kind of scanning. Essentially, if you have a very good quality scanning machine that is outdated because of it's not available anymore, or it's not in production, for example, Nikon CoolScan, then that software kind of reverse engineer the driver and allows you to that particular scanning software into the current operating system. And that's very good. Anyway, I kind of sure that you already know about that. Now, what is this video about is that I'm going to show you the easiest and most efficient way to use that software, at least what I found. And then I'm going to get into the detail part, which is personally I avoid it, but because of this video I'm going to show you so that you can learn something and probably you will be able to use it yourself. Now, for this particular video I'm using my Plustek optic film 8100 and the Fuji c200 negative. There you go. And just a few reminder, be careful. You know that life is dusty, but you will not realize until how dusty the life is until you scan your negatives, because I've been using that blower over and over and over again until forever to get rid of my dust. But again, this is probably one of the hardest thing I've ever done, and this one doesn't do any dust removal, unfortunately. But then again, if I had this option in this particular machine, it wouldn't be useful for my black and white negative, so I had to use dust scanner manually. Now let's jump into how to use it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn on my machine, and again, use gloves. Really important. Now, once it's done, I'm going to turn on my VueScan. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pop in my film inside the machine. But before I do that, I'm going to have to blow it one more time because it's been sitting for a while. About this machine, you can insert negative from this side or that side. It's totally up to you. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually show you the easy one. Before I get into the easy one, I should mention, if you want to see the example of what I used, the film photo that I've used, go to my Flickr and Instagram to check out that photo in full resolution so that you can get some idea. And also, please do subscribe. That helps me a lot to continue this YouTube channel. About the easy part, it's pretty simple. Essentially, what you can do, you can scan a negative and positive version of the raw DNG and then use any other software to do further editing. So your objective, you can just use that particular software just to scan and get as much information as you possibly can into a big massive file of DNG. And then you can use, if you use Lightroom, you can use Film Negative Pro, I believe, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, which I don't use because I don't use Lightroom. If you don't have Lightroom, like me, you can actually use SilkyPigs Developer Studio Pro, which has a very dedicated film conversion tool, which I particularly like, and I actually made a video about it. So go check it out in my SilkyPigs Developer Studio playlist. It's available. So yeah, if you have Lightroom Negative Lab Pro. If you don't have, then Silkypix Developer Studio Pro. You can still use the free version like Darktable, Raw Therapy, Photoshop, Affinity Photo, and then play with the curves. That also works, but it's always nice to use any kind of dedicated software. I personally recommend you. Now, let's show you the easy part first because I keep talking. Now, so go to the input and change option to professional, not basic, not standard. Now then task, scan to file, then source, select your scanner, media, color negative. Now if you have slide film, of course you select slide film. If you have black and white negative, make sure that you select the black and white negative. If you have an image, because you are using probably different kind of scanner, then make sure that you select image. So make sure you're selecting exactly what you're scanning. Now, preview resolution. Normally, I keep my preview at the lowest because preview is nothing to do with the actual final result. However, the scan resolution, I keep it to 3600 because I think is plenty enough and extraordinary. But you can, in Plustek, and go all the way up to 7200. Now, everything else I leave at the default. One other important thing, you should go down, and if you want to scan few times like a HDR, make sure you select multi-exposure. Personally, I don't really use it because one single scan is already more than enough for me, to be honest with you. Now, bits per pixel, make sure you select 48-bit because 48-bit essentially create a 16-bit file. If you select 24-bit, the end result will be 8-bit. There is a lot more into it, but I recommend you to go in any internet resources and read more about it. But what I learned, 48-bit RGB is essentially a 16-bit final TIFF file. Now, make sure you select your folder into the default folder or select your own version and make sure you name it, of course, depends on your images. Now, once you're done in the input, skip everything. Now, I'm going to change my language because it's in French. So I'm going to change it to English. Now, skip, as I said, skip all of it, then go straight to the exit or output. Say in French, it's written sortie, which means output. Now, in order to have a DNG file, positive and negative, make sure you select TIFF. Again, name it. I'm going to leave it into the default. And then file type, again, as I said, 48-bit RGB. Now, important information. Certain software do not support 48-bit RGB. Unfortunately, can happen. I think Lightroom accepts it. My Silkypix developer and Affinity Photo accepts it. But if you don't, I recommend you to go down to 24-bit in order to make sure that it's working in any software available. Now, let's jump in. Now, compression, I leave it off. And then make sure you click DNG format. This is what you want to have a very good quality DNG scan of your negative. So this one you're selecting for a positive, but in order to have the actual raw negative, the actual untouched, unedited, you go down and click raw file. So which means the software will going to save two different files. One is the TIFF DNG positive and a raw, which means that potentially it is going to save the actual negative that later you can convert into positive in any other dedicated software. But be careful. If you click raw save film, then again is going to flip it itself using its own algorithm and save another positive. So you're going to have two positive. So first positive will be the TIFF DNG at the beginning that we selected, and the second one will be the raw DNG positive. The difference is the first one will keep all the changed information that you originally did in between in the filter or color. But the raw DNG will keep everything untouched, so that later you do your version. So reminder, If you don't click raw save film, but if you click it, it will change to positive. I'm repeating it, I know, I apologize, but I think it's important because I made few mistakes myself. Also, at the bottom, raw compression change off so that it keep the maximum. Then raw DNG format, so it will save as DNG. And of course, if you want to see the scan, I'm going to click preview. Now it's scanning it. Look at that. Now it's upside down, of course, and you can crop it. You select all the border and then crop later. Then at the beginning input, you click left or right to select the right angle. Then come back to the exit or output, check everything all over again. TIFF file, then name your TIFF file. Make sure your TIFF size reduction into 1. TIFF file type to 48-bit for a 16-bit output. TIFF DNG format, select click. TIFF profile, I actually leave it untouched. If you want to save JPEG, which I don't, you click JPEG, then go down to RAW, name the RAW file. Make sure the RAW size reduction into 1. Select raw DNG format, and that's it. Then you click scan, it will save 2 different files, one positive, one negative. I'm gonna do it right now. And now it's saving a file. Now I'm going to go to the folder in the meantime, so to save some time. Now there is a folder where it's saved 2 different formats. So this one is the negative, the original DNG raw positive, and the second one, which is the raw, the actual inverted. So that means that you can go to any kind of software and then invert it to positive using SilkyPix Developer Studio Pro or any other dedicated film editing software such as Film Negative Lab Pro or Negative Lab Pro in Lightroom. So that's the easy one. I think personally that's what you should do, and then forget about anything else. Just save the maximum result, the biggest file possibly you can using that software, and then do any other editing, which actually gave me a good result because I seriously don't like the editing of the software. For example, in the filter, which does a good job, you click restore colors. It will try to restore all the colors, fixing the RGB. Restore fading actually, which means that if it has a lot of fading, for example, or color degradation, for instance, here, if I don't click it, it becomes blue. That means that it's getting into the more cyan. So if you click restore fading, it tries to get rid of all the cyan overcast and try to keep it into the neutral format. Now, that's good. And I keep grain reduction and sharpen into none, obviously. Now, in the color, there's a few problems I find. It's not a problem, but it's difficult for me. For instance, I cannot change the curve manually. First thing. Only way I can change the curve using these couple of pointers going back and forth, which, I don't know, super old school. And second, histogram, I need to click graph image to look at the histogram. It doesn't even say histogram. It could just change the name and call it histogram. I don't get it. So you have to go to the image and then click graph curve to look at the curve, or graph image to look at the histogram. Now, everything else, I don't understand why they have to be separate. And why not I keep both at the same time? I don't get it. So that's one issue. Now in the color balance, you have plenty of presets. So you can keep it to none. I personally would keep it to white balance. So what it does, it tries to use the algorithm and make sure the white balance is perfectly done automatically, which is, actually works. I did many tests. It works perfectly, but at the same time, I can use one at a time. I cannot use all of it or multiple selection. So for instance, I can either select auto label, white balance. Now I can go back to auto label, and actually the results are all same. It's something to do with the luminance and a color. So auto label and white balance kind of give me the same result. And I always keep between one or another. Now here's the thing. If you go to filter and then you click restore colors and restore fading, then if you select in the color tab, negative vendor and negative brand, clicking the previous two will override everything you have done here, especially the negative vendor. So that means that if you selected the Kodak, for instance, I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to unclick restore color, restore fading. Then I'm going to go to the Kodak and select anything. For example, Kodak Actor. Now you see that color changed, right? Now, if I go back to filter and then select restore color, it just got overridden. So which means you can select one or another. If you selected the filter tab, anything in the filter tab, then the color negative vendor or negative brand will be override. You cannot use them. Now about the black point and white point. See, I have to use the graph curve to see exactly what is happening. So of course you select the black point and they select the white point, and you have to play with the slider and then look at the curve to see exactly what is happening. Curve low, curve high. I'm gonna put the slider up and take a look at the histogram or the curve at the bottom. So it's kind of pushes the black, the curve low. And if you do curve high, it pushes the midtone a lot without clipping the highlight and without clipping the black. So you got the idea. So again, I don't really play with them. Brightness is brightness, exactly what it says. Brightness red, green, and blue. It essentially, I'm going to turn on my histogram. If you do brightness red, it will push the red further to the right, or it will reduce the red. You see, I could have done that in curve, same way you'd have done in Lightroom using the individual red, green, and blue channels. But here you have the slider. I hate sliders. And everything else, typically I leave it to sRGB, because if you select Adobe RGB, that's fine too. But everything else after, I don't know what they have here. You have plenty of choices. You have even Pro Photo. You need to have dedicated scanner, dedicated printer, and dedicated monitor in order to monitor in that specific color profile. Super important to remember. So personally, I keep it to sRGB and my life is good. Before I finish this video, pixel color. What happened when you click pixel color, it will show you in different color if anything is clipping. For instance, here, green means the highlight is clipping in some part of the sky. Blue is where the shadow is clipping a little bit, but luckily the color, no color is clipping. If that was the case, it would show you in, I think, let me show you. I think the out of color gamut would be cyan, but good news that I don't have anything clipping here, which is a very good news. Now, again, stick with the easy part. What I just showed you, go to the input, select the maximum selection, a 48-bit RGB, then a scanning resolution to 3600 or whatever your scanner allows you to. And make sure that you select all the name, folder, and the raw file name, and etc. Then go straight to output, select TIFF DNG, the raw DNG, without any compression. Make sure you name them. Make sure you select the side reduction to 1. And make sure you select the 48-bit RGB to have the 16-bit output. and then scan away. And that should be enough, and then do everything else later, because when it comes to the color editing, the VueScan, it's a pain in the pineapple. So I personally do not recommend you. Use your personal editor that you're comfortable with. Now, enough the talking. Now, if you want to see the result of this particular image, go to my Flickr account and see it for yourself, how the result came out. I actually going to edit this photo right now in SilkyPix Developer Studio Pro for my final output, and then post it in my Flickr and my Instagram. So go and check it out. And also, please do subscribe. It helps me a lot. I hope this video helped you a lot. If so, comment below. If you didn't like it, let me know why you didn't like it. And I'm happy to listen to your feedback. Look after yourself. Super important these days. And see you next time. Bye-bye.